If you were to ask someone to name some of the most well-known OS maps ever, you would be hard-pressed to find anyone who didn't mention Airman. The map that has tested an entire generation of players and racked up millions of plays is pretty much one of the best examples of a classic challenge map. Seeing the leaderboard today, you may forget that not so long ago players could barely full combo it and would struggle on many of the jumps. Over the past 9 years, hundreds of thousands have taken on Airman and either defeated it or been defeated. Let's take a look at the history of Airman's scores to see how a map that was once thought to be impossible was conquered many times over. January 1st, 2011. To start off the new year, two mappers came together to take on a classic song which had been mapped before, Can't Defeat Airman by Team.Ne ko Can. Mismagius, known as Blue Dragon at the time, had already become synonymous with his extremely challenging maps, and with help from Ztrot would make one of his most infamous maps ever. When submitted, it hit the star rating cap at the time of 5.0, thanks to its very high approach rate of 10, which in that era was nearly unheard of. This, paired with some of the highest spacing jumps around, arranged in different patterns, were enough to throw off even the most experienced players. It actually ended up making it harder for the map to reach approval at first, but the extreme difficulty it posed quickly became a favorite among players trying to test their agility. Before the map was even approved, players would start attempting scores on Airman. Coming to the forefront immediately was CookieZ, who had just cemented his place as Player of the Year for 2010. By the end of January, he already achieved a 986 out of 1025 combo A rank on an older version of the map which seems to be lost. During the summer, there was a large discussion on the beatmap forums over what approach rate the map should be and how to get the map into a rankable state, which lasted for months. As things slowed down and progressed after some time, the map was finally let through to the approved section and allowed a leaderboard on September 24th, 2011. The coming months would see two major contenders finding their place near the top of the leaderboard. In second place was Italian player Chewin, who set a no-mod 99.56% one miss at 769 combo, which showed just how possible an FC was for some of the top players in the game. Blowing that score away though was CookieZ with a hard rock 97.42% 6 miss, which was nearly an FC at 982 combo in the first place position. Already it seemed that the rest of the world was going to be playing catch-up since this map was CookieZ's bread and butter. Still, these scores lasted for months, and players like Wubbleful, Ferrucci, and even Mismagius would try their best to set high scores. What came next though wasn't surprising at all. On February 25th, 2012, CookieZ returned to Airman, opting for a no-mod score this time. With how comfortable he seemed on the map over a year ago and a couple months ago with Hard Rock on top, he was seeming pretty confident in his aiming ability. Even though players like Chewin had come close with high accuracy one-miss scores, no one had been able to bring it all together and pull off an FC. As dozens were spectating endgame, he played through the map that no one could full combo up to that point flawlessly, showing just how far ahead of every other player he was. In an incredible turn of events, CookieZ achieved not only the first FC on Airman ever, but also the first SS. The score not only cemented CookieZ as an unstoppable player, but also helped catapult the map to an even greater status as more players tried to match his score. Evidently, getting the second FC on Airman would seem to be harder than the first, since it was unclear if anybody would be able to match that level of aim. New additions to the leaderboard like Ferrucci with a 97.28% one miss showed that it was possible, but with only 697 combo he fell quite short of the mark. Despite hundreds of thousands of plays going into the map and a few players reaching single-digit miscounts, no one was getting the combo they needed during the end jumps. Several other players could get very high accuracy, such as Clementine and Saya Honmai, but it seemed like everyone was stuck with plays around 700 combo. Weeks passed, then months passed, all the way until 6 months later in September, we would get the second Airman FC ever. Ferrucci came back to the map often, and solidified his place in history on the third, with his 98.79% no-mod FC. Finally able to hit the end jumps and getting fairly good accuracy, he was second only to CookieZ's 100% play. If the gap between the first and second FC seemed long, then the second and third must feel like an eternity. As it turned out, CookieZ and Ferrucci probably had the best aim of any players at the time, and it showed on this map that was practically entirely jumps. A somewhat contested part of history is Clementine's FC on the map in early 2013, since soon after he was banned, which left many unsure if his play was legitimate. Some players began setting higher combo runs in the 800s and 900s in the beginning of the year, but still no one quite measured up to the FCs already on the board. Still, as time continued to pass, the constant two scores at the top of the map were CookieZ's SS and Marucci's S. That all changed when one of them decided to return to the map once more. Even as early as September 2011, CookieZ was pushing his limits on the map with a very good hard rock run, so when he started attempting runs again, it seemed like an obvious progression. On April 27, 2013, the leaderboard would be completely destroyed once again by CookieZ as he was having some airman attempts. Almost jokingly, for much of the play, he was cursor dancing and really showing just how effortless jumps like these were for him, even with the increased CS and OD. With a 99.11% Hard Rock FC, CookieZ replaced his legendary 100% no-mod run for one which almost no one could even match. The leaderboard now looked ridiculous, with a single Hard Rock FC and no-mod FC, and many chokes for as far as the eye could see. Even as players like Nico achieved 0-100 one-miss scores, the map almost seemed cursed, as more than a year passed since Marucci's play. As 2013 ended, one final major event would shake up the leaderboard of not only Airman, but pretty much every map once more: CookieZ's ban. With his scores removed, Marucci now held a #1 position on the map as the only FC, but new hope would come through nearly 2 years after it was set. After many choke runs since the map was ranked, the Lua was no stranger to Airman. He was working on his aim at the time and knew that an FC on Airman was possible, just given a lucky run. On August 5th, 2014, while streaming on Twitch, that run would finally come. With a slider end drop near the end section, the Lua almost replicated the SS, but fell just short with a 99.92% FC, which earned him the #1 spot on the map. As if the curse was now broken, his play brought a renewed interest in the map, and only a few days later we would finally get another modded FC. On August 10th, Fun Orange took the Airman #1 from the Lua with a hidden FC of the same accuracy, only 1/100 away from a perfect hidden score. Moving into the end of the year, with competition reignited, many players strive for great plays on Airman to try and push the boundaries of the game once again. In November, Sayonara Bai would put up a large 975 combo 2-miss hard rock play, which was the best anyone had done with the mod since CookieZ. Months later, in March 2015, we would see a new no-mod SS on the map by Mocha, which finally put that to rest, and as it turns out, Mocha was actually a multi-account of Clementine. All in all, the world was finally catching up to CookieZ's records after more than 2 years. I would be remiss without talking about some of the other weird and wonderful achievements on this map from around the same time. The advent of PPV2 and star rating made Airman a somewhat easy map for players to get a 7-star pass on due to its low HP drain value. Despite this, it wasn't until 2015 that we would see a double time pass from none other than speed legend Oxycodone. We've definitely come a long way from here, with players like Yasin, Whitecat, and Maxim Bogdan putting up A's, and even Emrek and Whitecat achieving 3 mod passes as well. Easy mod was something that several players tried at for a while, with players like Milhior F choking the ending to get a 983 combo 0-100 7 misplay. The first Easy FC came in mid-2015 with a 98.87% from Makes191, who then went on to achieve the first Easy SS about a year and a month later. Now that these major events are covered, let's get back to the main competition. With the no-mod and hidden records for this map all but maxed and some effort going into hard rock, there would be an increased focus on this side of the challenge. Early 2015, as any OS historian will tell you, saw the rise of a hard rock player whose skill at the time was compared to CookieZ, and it would also show in his Airman runs. Index would attempt a few plays on Airman with hard rock, but the one that finally stuck was a 978 combo, 99.28% 2-miss, which even beat CookieZ's accuracy, but didn't quite reach an FC. Still, reaching number 6 on the map, it was definitely the best hard rock play on the leaderboard at the time, and even arguably the best play on the map. A few other players would start hard rock attempts around this time, most notably Nero, who played the map with hidden hard rock and reached a sizable 826 combo 3-miss. In the coming months, many players would start setting no-mod FCs and even a few hidden-only FCs, but the real treat would come over the summer in August. After hundreds of tries, Nero would finally get the run he was looking for. Keeping relatively good accuracy until the end, he would pull off a 98.55% hidden Hard Rock FC, finally giving Airman a Hard Rock FC after all these years in a new #1 score. The skill cap for this map was finally being pushed past even what Cookie Z had been able to achieve. Nero showed just how good players were getting at aim. With Cookie Z's unban in late November of the year, many people expected a high accuracy hidden Hard Rock FC from him on Airman, but that didn't seem to matter to him. Cookie Z never really seriously played, and only ever put up a 97.58% where he missed 4 times on purpose at the ending since he was not happy with his accuracy. Still, this not-so-serious run placed #2 on the map and was better than any other hidden Hard Rock play apart from Nero's. As 2016 swept past, there wasn't so much action near the very top of the map, and it almost seemed as if Airman truly was defeated after the hidden Hard Rock FC. One person didn't believe that though, and it turned out to be Nero himself. As time continued to pass, not much changed. We went months, even years, without any boundary-pushing scores on Airman. By the end of 2017, the top 50 was finally almost completely filled with FCs, most of which no mod of course. For months though, Nero had been working on a play slowly, his progress documented, but I'm not sure that many were prepared for the result. After dumping hours of gameplay and more than 1,000 plays into this single map, Nero had finally built up some muscle memory which he would put to good use. On December 30th, 2017, just as the year was closing, Nero achieved a 99.52% flashlight FC on Airman, which thankfully beat his old score and claimed #1 on the map. Years of practice and hundreds of runs finally came together to show what was possible on a map like Airman given enough time. As of today, Nero's flashlight play is still #1 score on the map, and is definitely one of the more impressive flashlight scores in the whole game, due to the aim required. Even as recently, Nero's hidden Hard Rock play was finally beaten by Machine, his flashlight play for almost 3 years remains completely unmatched. Airman with flashlight is truly an endgame score if there ever was one, and the dedication and time Nero put in definitely shows. From its start, Airman was a map that challenged players and was meant to test the limits of aim at the start of the 2010s. Now that we're more than 9 years out from the day it was approved, it's good to see that despite all of the FCs, there's still unexplored territory and challenges to be had. It started as a map almost completely dominated by Cookie Z, and ended as a map thoroughly dominated by Nero. As one of the most popular OS maps ever, it's been interesting to see how players have evolved over time to defeat Airman and how the challenge has shifted each time. Who knows, there might even be some way to push Airman even further that we haven't seen yet.